Good day, good day, good day, and welcome to another Korean Talk Experience video. Teach and learn in Korea experience videos. There's a couple of things I'm going to tell you quickly. I'm going to make shorter videos, and secondly, I'm going to focus on the school life aspect first before I'm going to delve into my Korean experiences. So you can expect at least another 5 to 10, maybe even more videos on my school life in South Korea, with regards to the students and everything. And then we'll go back to my non school life and talk about that and all the interesting experiences. And I believe after that, I'll probably end off with the last day or the last couple of weeks of my school life, just to like round everything off, because this is what Teach and Learn in Korea was all about. So without any further ado, let's just quickly continue on. So this is fast forward. Like I said, I'm going to focus on events and everything. So within the first year, I think within the first 6 months, I believe it was like July-ish. Might be even, it might have been even, yeah, it was like during the summertime. It was about to get colder, but it was during the summertime in South Korea. Or it was just this, no, it was just the start of summertime. Kids were playing. Yeah, it was just the start of summertime. So we're talking about uh, like May-ish. I think somewhere in May. And May, maybe even June, somewhere there. It's like right smack dab in the middle. So kids were playing and everything. And let me tell you, this is not a video. I knew this video was coming, and I'm still not looking forward to it, but just a fair bit of warning. It's a little bit sad. Well, it is sad, not even a little bit. It is sad. So this one Wednesday, I remember. So what the school usually does, or what the school eventually ended up doing, is whenever the grade 5s and grade 6s were busy with their extracurricular activities, I would take over the younger classes. And eventually I started teaching from grade 1 through to grade 8, grade 6, 5, 6, around about there. I taught all the elementary school grades. And this time I haven't taught any of them, or the younger grades, the grade 1s and 2s yet. And, kids were getting used to me. Like, there'd be random kids running up to me and they'd talk to me in Korean, and I'll answer them back as best as I can. And they'd just be like, they'd be doing normal kid stuff. I'd be like, huh, huh, and then they'd run. They'd run away from me like, oh, they spoke to the foreigner, the teacher, the English teacher. And I was like, this is part of the thing, this is part of the whole experience. I'm just accepting it and I'm embracing it and everything. And I remember there's two little girls. I believe they were grade 2. And they'd run up to me and they'd like, teacher, teacher. And I'd be like, yes. And they're like, no, teacher. And I'd go down and they'd whisper something in Korean in my ear. But it was that whole kid whisper thing, i.e. more wind than actual sound. So I'm sitting there going, and I'm like, whoa, and they're like, ee, and they run away. It's like, okay. And this happened like a couple of days and a couple of times and everything. Fast forward to I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I believe it was a Wednesday. Let's stick with the Wednesday thing. Fast forward to a Wednesday, and I know my classes. Like, I was telling the teachers at that stage, like, I wouldn't be there for lunch because my classes only started at like, I think it was classes only started at like 2 or 3. And earlier in the morning, I messaged them and I'm like, listen, okay, wait, I'm gonna be there for lunch. I'm gonna be there for lunch. Because I realized that I had to prepare a little bit of the games and everything for my later classes. And just before I get on the bus, I get a call from my teacher, my co-teacher. And she's like, Zaffa, you don't have to come into school today. and I could immediately hear something was wrong, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? And she's like, one of the students had an accident. And I'm like, oh wait, are they okay, or is everything fine? What accident? What accident? And Koreans have a way of putting things very bluntly. And the co-teacher at that stage just said, it wasn't Suyeon. The co-teacher at that stage just said, no, she died. She passed away. And I'm like, what? What? And she's like, yeah, during one of their breaks, they were playing with skipping ropes. Now, what happens is they usually, like the kids run around with skipping ropes around their necks and everything. And this kid was running around, going down a slide with the skipping rope 2 or 3 times. And the skipping rope got entangled on the slide, basically choking herself. And this I only found out on the day of the funeral, or the memorial service, or whatever you want to call it in Korea. And I'm on the phone, and she's like, "No, she died." I'm like, "Oh wow!" And she's like, "There is," and she explained to me, like, if you look out across your apartment, the memorial service will be there tomorrow at 2 or 3 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, or the day after at 2 or 3 o'clock. And she's like, but you don't have. It was the Wednesday, and I think it was the Friday that I had to go, or it might have been. It might have happened on the Tuesday, and I had to go on the Thursday. But anyway, yeah, it was the Tuesday and the Thursday, because I know we had the rest of the week off, which was basically one day. And I'm like, okay, so no school tomorrow. And she's like, no school tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, I'm depressed, because she mentioned the girl's name, and I'm like, I don't know her. So immediately I think it's one of the younger kids. And I'm like, okay, it's. So the next day, I don't go to school or whatever. And, I play a bunch of games, and I try and keep my mind off of things. And the day after, she phones me, and she's like, oh, you can come to the place now. It's just across the street there. And I'm like, she says it's close. She's going to pin the location. I'm like, okay, cool. And I see the location. I'm like, oh, it's just across the street, a couple of blocks away from me. I'll just walk there. So I get in my finest suit, or I get into a suit, got my glasses ready. Funeral, not something I was looking forward to, or not something I wanted to experience. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to experience that in Korea or in a different country. So I go, and I get there, and she meets me. I phone her, and I'm like, I'm outside. I don't know where to go. She's like, she's going to come out, and she's going to greet me. And I'm like, cool, please tell me everything that I need to do. I don't want to mess this up. So what essentially happens is, on one of the floors, there's this giant, beautiful floral display with a photo of the kid. And I look at her, and I'm like, she's one of the kids that continuously came up to me and whispered into my ear. I'm like, okay, cool. She's probably like grade 2 and whatever. I'm like, oh my. And I saw that photo, and I immediately, tears start welling up in my eyes. And I was like, damn. And I was told what to do is, what you do is you go to the thing, you bow to her picture, and then you bow to her family, which is usually on both sides, but this time it was just on the one side. But you bow to everyone in that room. So I bow, and I bow, and I bow. And every time that I bow, the reality sets in deeper and deeper, that this kid, who just a couple of days ago whispered something in my ear, isn't there. And I bow, and I bow, and I see her grandfather or father. I bow to him, and he comes up, and he shakes my hand. And I'm like, look at him in the eyes, and I shake my hand, and I shake his hand and everything. And then we just basically had food. We basically just sat like had like Korean food and snacks and everything, like in a separate location. But we were all like the entire school was there. The entire school was there. All the teachers, all the students, everybody was there. Um, I don't think all the students, but you know what I mean. There was a lot of people and a lot of kids. And during this time, like every time I felt the emotions become too much for me, I'd excuse myself, go outside and smoke. And, I'd go back. And at one stage, I go outside and smoke. And there's this little, like, bench area. And the vice principal at that stage sits there. And I'm smoking and I'm just tearing up. And my co-teacher comes up to me and she's like, listen, rather take off your glasses because people think you might give the impression that you're hiding something. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I take off my glasses, never wore them again that day. And my sunglasses. And we sit outside and I'm smoking away from the teachers. And the co-teacher, the vice principal calls me over. He calls me over and he starts talking to me in Korean, and the co-teacher translates and is like, yeah, no, we need to find you a wife. You need to stay in Korea. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my actions that day also cemented the fact that I have a lot of, cemented the fact in their minds to them, or cemented the simple thing that, I do have a lot of respect and I do love the country. Like, they were expecting, oh, someone's dead, the teacher won't pitch up. Someone died, someone passed away, the teacher won't pitch up. I pitched up. I tried to ingrain myself into the Korean society or into my little Korean community, my teacher community, as much as possible. And that wasn't my intention. That was just me going, you know what? One of the kids at the school died. I'm technically part of their faculty. I need to be there. It was sort of my responsibility, my prerogative or whatever, to be there and just show my respect and everything. And I'll talk to you in the next video. I'll talk to you about the side effects or the after effects or the ripple this simple action created. But yeah, within my first 6 months, I went to a Korean funeral. It was bad. It was an experience. It was bad. But I don't think it might be the one thing that stood out from me. That might have set me apart from the rest of the people in the TaLK program. I don't think any of them, if they did, I don't know about it, but yeah. And I've, gained a little bit more respect from the teachers through my actions. And that wasn't my intention. And that was my first big, shocking event in South Korea. I'm not going to mention her name. I know her name. I know the kid's name. Her name is locked in my heart until, I go eventually. But yeah, every now and again, every year, roundabout, Facebook has a tendency to remind you on your memories, and every year when that memory pops up, I'm like, yeah, that is, and I never share it anymore, But yeah, that is a painful reminder. That's not a painful reminder, but that's just a reminder of her and her friend and everything, and her family and everything. But let me not continue on too long. The next video is going to tell you about the ripple effects that simple action caused. So thank you everybody for watching, and hopefully the next video is a little bit happier. Well, it will be a little bit happier. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.